I was the quiet one who always took their insults, until I revealed the truth about them at the Christmas party and watched their world collapse. They called me quiet. The harmless one. The invisible man who wouldn't fight back no matter how many times they laughed at my expense. But that night, everything changed. In a room glittering with holiday lights and laughter, I said the words that shattered the facade everyone had so carefully built. The moment hung in the air like the aftermath of an explosion. Faces froze mid-smile, drinks hovered just shy of lips, and all the festive cheer drained out of the room. The weight of what I'd revealed pressed down on everyone, suffocating the easy camaraderie that had defined the night. I watched as his expression cracked, the perfect mask slipping as realization set in. His voice, always so steady and commanding, faltered when he tried to respond, but the words wouldn't come. For once, it wasn't me scrambling for something to say. It was him. The silence wasn't just quiet, it was accusatory. It bore into every corner of the room, into the hearts of everyone present. The warmth of the party turned cold, the golden glow of the lights somehow harsher. The only sound was the faint hum of the Christmas music still playing in the background, a cruel contrast to the unraveling chaos. In that moment, I didn't feel small or invisible. I felt seen. And for the first time, I wasn't the one shrinking into the shadows. I wasn't the one desperate to escape. That night, it was finally someone else's turn to disappear. I'm 35, and if you asked anyone at the soccer club about me, they'd probably struggle to remember my name. Oh, him? They'd say. The guy who plays defense, works in IT, kind of quiet. That's me, the background character, the one who fades into the crowd without making a ripple. Dave, though? Dave is the golden boy. At 37, he's the kind of guy everyone gravitates toward. He's tall, athletic, with a grin that seems permanently plastered on his face, like he knows life's going to go his way no matter what. He's the captain of the team, the loudest voice in the room, and the guy who makes every victory feel like his personal triumph. People love him because he makes them feel important, until they're no longer useful. And then there's Lisa, 34, his girlfriend of 5 years. She's as outgoing and magnetic as Dave, with a sharp wit and a laugh that fills the room. She's the kind of woman who can insult you to your face and leave you feeling like you should apologize for it. Together, they're the power couple of the club. Loved by everyone, feared by no one. Except maybe me. For as long as I've been part of the club, they've made me their favorite target. Dave mocks everything about me, my job, my movements on the field, even the way I try to join in during social events. Lisa joins in without fail, throwing in her sharp comments with a disarming smile. It's never outright cruel. Just sharp enough to draw blood but subtle enough to get a laugh from the others without looking like bullies. I hated it. Every jab, every joke chipped away at me a little more. But I'm not the kind of person who fights back. Confrontation? It's just not me. I told myself to let it go, that it didn't matter, that they didn't matter. I clung to that belief until last month. That's when I found out their perfect act was a lie. I wasn't supposed to see it, but I did. A secret, the kind that doesn't just shatter illusions, it turns them to dust. For years, I had let them take jabs at me, make me feel small, insignificant. But this secret? It gave me something I never had before, power. I didn't want it. I didn't want to use it. But they wouldn't stop. Even at the Christmas party, they pushed, poked, and prodded until I reached my breaking point. And when they crossed the line one too many times, I gave them one last chance to leave me alone. They didn't take it. So I took the power they handed me, and I wielded it. For the first time in years, my voice didn't waver. The truth came pouring out, and everything changed. It was late Thursday night after a brutal match. My legs ached, my shirt clung to me with sweat, and I was ready to head home when I realized I'd left my gym bag in the locker room. With the club deserted, the echo of my footsteps against the tiled floor felt almost eerie. And then I heard it, laughter. Not the loud, rowdy kind we all shared after a win, but hushed, intimate. Curious, I slowed my steps, the sound drawing me toward the lockers. As I turned the corner, I froze. There they were. Dave, the golden boy, had his hands on Julia's waist, pulling her close. Julia, the glue of the team, the one who always had snacks for us after matches, who sent encouraging messages in the group chat, who was married to Sam, the only person who had ever treated me with consistent kindness. They were kissing, their heads tilted in that practiced way that screamed familiarity. They looked comfortable, like this wasn't the first time. My heart slammed against my ribs as my stomach twisted violently. Everything I thought I knew about them, about the club, about us, it crumbled in that moment. Sam's easy smile flashed through my mind, his goofy jokes during warm-ups, the way he'd always say, "Don't let them get to you, man. You're better than that." And Lisa, Dave's girlfriend, who could be cutting and cruel but didn't deserve this. I clenched the steering wheel tighter. For the first time in years, I didn't feel small. I didn't feel irrelevant. I felt a fire growing, simmering just below the surface. And while I hadn't said anything yet, I knew deep down this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. That secret had been eating away at me since the night I saw them. Every practice, every match, every time Dave barked some joke at my expense, it simmered under the surface. I told myself I wouldn't say anything. It wasn't my place. But the longer I carried it, the heavier it became, like a weight pressing down on my chest. By the time the Christmas party came around, I was like a taut wire, ready to snap. Sam convinced me to go, completely unaware of the storm brewing beneath my skin. He clapped me on the shoulder, his usual friendly grin on display. "Come on, man, it'll be good for you. You need to get out of your own head. Besides, you're always there for the matches, this is the fun part." He was trying to be kind, as he always was. And part of me wanted to believe him. Maybe this could be fun. Maybe tonight would be different. The soccer club's Christmas party was the event everyone looked forward to, a night of glittering lights, gourmet food, and pretending the club was one big, happy family. The venue was fancy, all polished wood floors and sparkling chandeliers, with festive music humming in the background. I arrived late, thinking I could slip in unnoticed, maybe grab a drink and sit in a corner. But fate, or Dave, had other plans. The moment I stepped through the door, he spotted me. I barely had time to grab a drink before he sauntered over, Lisa trailing behind. They both looked immaculate, like a power couple out of a magazine spread. I felt their gazes sweep over me, and Dave's smirk widened. "You clean up all right," he said, the edge in his voice unmistakable. "Guess there's hope for you yet." Lisa laughed, not missing her cue. "He's probably still single, though. Poor thing. Maybe we should find him someone. Charity work, right?" The knot in my stomach tightened. I clenched my jaw and tried to focus on my drink, but they weren't done. At dinner, they found me again. This time, Lisa leaned across the table, swirling her wine glass lazily as her voice cut through the conversation. "You know, I don't think I've ever seen you bring anyone to these things. You must get lonely. Or maybe it's just hard for you to connect." The laughter around the table stung. It wasn't just them anymore. Others were joining in, feeding off the cruelty like it was part of the entertainment. And that's when it happened, something inside me broke. I stood abruptly, my chair scraping loudly against the floor. The room quieted, all eyes turning to me. For the first time, I felt their attention like a spotlight, but I didn't shrink away. My heart pounded, but my voice was steady. "You've had your fun. Do you want to keep going? Or should we finally talk about secrets? Because I know one that might just wipe those smug looks off your faces." The murmurs started immediately, a ripple of confusion and unease. Dave raised his beer, flashing his trademark grin. "What's he talking about?" he said, his voice light but his eyes wary. "Sit down, man, you're embarrassing yourself." I locked eyes with him. "I'm talking about the locker room. About you. And Julia." The room froze. Someone gasped audibly. At the back of the room, Julia, dressed in a sleek black dress, stiffened. Her wine glass slipped from her hand and shattered on the floor. Sam, who had been laughing moments ago, now looked at me with wide, confused eyes. "What's he talking about, Julia?" Sam asked, his voice quiet but edged with dread. Dave laughed nervously. "You were making this up. You're pathetic, you know that? Trying to ruin my night because you can't take a joke?" I turned to Sam, ignoring Dave entirely. "I saw them. Last month, after the match. Together. Ask her if I'm lying." Julia's face crumpled as the weight of my words hit her. Sam stood, his chair tipping back, his expression a mix of shock and fury. "Julia?" he demanded, louder this time. "Is this true?" She opened her mouth to respond, but no words came out. Tears spilled down her cheeks as she reached for Sam, but he backed away, his hands trembling. Lisa's voice cut through the silence, trembling. "Tell me he's lying, Dave. Please." Dave stammered, trying to find his footing, but it was useless. The carefully crafted persona they had built, the golden couple of the club, was crumbling in front of everyone. "You could have left me alone," I said, my voice steady but cold. "But you didn't. And now everyone knows exactly who you are." The room erupted into chaos. Lisa hurled her drink at Dave, shouting something unintelligible. Sam stormed out, Julia trailing behind him, begging him to stop. Conversations broke out in hushed, frantic tones as people tried to process what they had just witnessed. I stood there for a moment, feeling the weight of what I had done settle over me. Part of me felt victorious, like I had finally reclaimed something they had stolen. But another part of me felt hollow, like I had destroyed something fragile and irreplaceable. And for the first time, the room didn't feel suffocating. I wasn't the one trying to escape. That was their role now. The party unraveled the moment I walked out. Lisa's furious shouts echoed even through the heavy doors behind me, her words sharp and cutting, each one aimed like a dagger at Dave. Sam's footsteps were heavy and determined as he strode across the parking lot, Julia stumbling after him, her pleas breaking into gasping sobs. I stood there for a moment, the cold night air biting my skin as the adrenaline drained away. The ache in my chest wasn't just from what I'd done, it was from years of being belittled, years of shrinking myself to fit into their perfect, polished world. That world was in ruins now, and I couldn't tell if I felt relief or guilt. The next day, the fallout began. My phone buzzed incessantly with messages. Some were simple, quiet acknowledgments. It took guts to do that. Thanks for saying something. Others were harsher. What the hell is wrong with you? That wasn't your business. One person even called me a homewrecker, as if I had caused the affair instead of revealing it. Sam's message came late that night. Thank you. I wish I hadn't found out this way, but I'm glad I know. It was short, restrained, but I could feel the weight behind his words. Lisa, unsurprisingly, said nothing. I heard through the grapevine that she'd packed her things and moved out the same night. Dave, ever the charmer, tried to spin the story to some of the club. According to him, I'd been jealous of his success, bitter because I couldn't handle the teasing. But the cracks in his story were obvious. He couldn't explain Julia. He couldn't explain why Sam had left the club chat without a word. And Julia? She blocked me on everything, as did Dave. I couldn't blame her. She'd built a life on appearances, and I destroyed it in one night. The club itself became a battleground. The group chat exploded with debates, some people defending Dave, saying I was out of line, others quietly supporting me. The schism was enough that practices felt strained, and games lost their camaraderie. My position there was untenable. Even if I'd been right, even if I'd been justified, I knew I couldn't stay. A few weeks after I left the club, a former member reached out to me. They'd been following the fallout and thought I'd want to know the rest of the story. Dave's actions hadn't just fractured his relationship with Lisa, they'd unraveled his carefully curated life. Someone had tipped off his boss about his extracurricular activities, and it turned out this wasn't his first time blurring professional and personal boundaries. He'd been fired. Julia's husband, Sam, had moved back in with his parents while filing for divorce. The team, already divided, had lost a handful of players, making it impossible to field enough people for matches. The club, once Dave's personal kingdom, was crumbling. But here's the irony, the unraveling of their lives didn't bring me joy. It didn't feel like victory. Instead, it felt like confirmation that the truth, no matter how ugly, always comes to light. As for me, I started fresh. A week after leaving the club, I joined a hiking group. It was different from the soccer team, no banter, no pretense, just people who enjoyed the quiet rhythm of walking through the woods. At first, I kept my distance, nervous about being judged, but no one seemed to care that I wasn't loud or flashy. For the first time in years, I wasn't the butt of anyone's joke. Looking back, I still wonder if I could have handled it differently. Maybe I could have pulled Dave aside, told Sam quietly. Maybe it wouldn't have turned into the disaster it did. But the truth? The truth doesn't like to be buried. It festers. It grows. And eventually, it demands to be let out. Walking away felt like giving up at first. But now, I see it wasn't the end of something, it was the start of something better. Joining the hiking group reminded me that not every group has to revolve around egos and power plays. Sometimes, you just need people who see you for who you are, not who they want you to be. Still, I wonder, did I handle it the right way? Could I have done things differently? Have you ever reached a breaking point with a group or team you cared about? What would you have done in my shoes? Update 1. Hi everyone, it's been a few weeks since the Christmas party, and I wasn't planning on posting again, but a lot of you have asked if I've heard from anyone since then. Well, turns out I have, and it's been interesting. First, I got a message from Sam about 2 weeks after the party. It was short but heartfelt. He thanked me again for telling him the truth, even though it hurt to hear. He admitted that the fallout was brutal, he and Julia have officially filed for divorce, and he's been staying with his parents while figuring out his next steps. He didn't say much else, but there was something about his tone that felt lighter, like he was starting to see a way forward. I don't think we'll ever be close friends, but I'm glad he knows the truth now. The bigger surprise came from Lisa. I hadn't heard a word from her since that night, so I was shocked when she reached out a few days ago. Her message was surprisingly sincere. She thanked me for exposing Dave's lies and admitted that she'd spent years ignoring red flags. She didn't apologize for the way she used to treat me, but she did say that the whole situation has made her reevaluate a lot about herself. Apparently, she's moved back to her hometown to start over. It was strange, reading her words. On one hand, I'm glad she's taking steps to move forward. On the other hand, it doesn't erase the years of ridicule she threw my way. I guess part of me is still waiting for that apology, but I'm not holding my breath. As for the soccer club, I haven't gone back, and I don't plan to. I've heard through the grapevine that it's barely holding together, people have left, the energy's gone, and practices are more like awkward meetups now. Honestly, It feels like the chapter is closed for good, and I'm okay with that. Thanks to everyone who commented on my original post. It's been a weird few weeks, but hearing your thoughts has helped me put things into perspective. I'll keep you updated if anything else happens, but for now, I'm focused on moving forward. Update 2. Hey everyone, it's been a few months since the fallout at the Christmas party, and I thought I'd give you an update, especially since so many of you asked how I've been doing since leaving the soccer club. The truth is, things have been surprising, but in a good way. After the drama settled, I threw myself into work, mostly to keep my mind off things. It was easier to focus on projects and deadlines than to dwell on the chaos I'd left behind. I've always been good at my job, but something shifted in me after that night. I started speaking up more during meetings, pitching ideas I would have kept to myself before. I don't know if it was confidence or just the realization that I'd survived worse criticism, but people began to notice. A few weeks ago, my boss pulled me aside and told me he'd been impressed with my initiative lately. Long story short, I got a promotion, one that puts me in charge of a major project for a new client. It's challenging, but for the first time, I feel like I'm being seen for what I bring to the table, not just the quiet guy in the background. But that's not all. I've been spending more time with the hiking group I joined after leaving the soccer club. At first, I kept to myself, only chatting when someone initiated, but over time, I started to feel more comfortable. There's one person in particular I've gotten close to, a woman named Anna. She's smart, funny, and somehow manages to make me feel at ease even when we're talking about nothing in particular. We've gone on a few hikes together outside the group, and while I wouldn't say we're official, there's definitely something there. It's been a long time since I felt like someone saw me for who I am, and it's nice. Reflecting on it all, I've realized how much I'd let myself be boxed into a version of me that other people defined, the quiet guy, the awkward guy, the target for jokes. I don't know if standing up at that party was the best way to handle things, but it was a turning point. It made me stop shrinking myself to fit other people's expectations. Life isn't perfect, and I'm still figuring things out. But I'm no longer holding on to people or places that don't respect me, and that feels like a win. What about you? Have you ever had to let go of a toxic situation to find something better? How did it change you? Let me know, I'd love to hear your stories.
Hey, did you love this story? Subscribe and turn on notifications for more.